I'm Nicole Campbell. I'm a commercial real estate agent at Cushman Wakefield Tallheimer. I'm your ceiling tile expert, and I'm this week's guest on Connected Mindset Live.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Tomchick. Welcome to the Connected Mindset Podcast, where each week we bring you the stories to better connect with the world around you. Let's dive into this week's podcast. Nicole Campbell, welcome to the Connected Mindset.
Thank you so much for having me. I
Absolutely.
love this.
Yeah, I'm very glad you're here. We're going to talk a lot about transition. A lot of our listeners today are transitioning out of something or into something. And I think it's something that doesn't get discussed enough on the lessons we learn from transition. So I'm curious, from all the transitions you've gone through, is there something, either a lesson or an event that still sticks with you today and kind of what you put out in the world and how you live on a daily basis?
I think the biggest part of that for me was I grew up as a military brat, as they say. Mm-hmm. We moved around a lot, and I looked forward to the moving around. That was something that was exciting to me, being able to meet new people and not necessarily reinvent myself, but I could start over if I needed to. So I took that with me as an adult, and I looked forward to that when I joined the Army. And as we moved around and I tried different things in my career, I'll say I had a bunch of jobs. And so that part of my life I was able to take from doing different things as a kid and experiencing different places and then taking that as into my adult life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the positive anticipation of transition is critically important. I think a lot of us have fear around transition because of the uncertainty. I'm curious, being a military born person, a military brat, what made you want to join that lifestyle yourself and get into the military?
I needed to get away. I don't know if people back home will love that, but I lived in a small town after my dad retired. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot going on that I felt connected to. It was just a different group of people that for whatever reason, I couldn't explain it at the time, but as a teenager, it was just something wasn't there for me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, if I was going to do anything, I understand this life. I knew what my dad experienced, and I thought I could see myself doing that, and I could see myself having this long career. I actually thought I would be the first female sergeant major of the Army. I had all these lofty goals, and so I put myself out there to really get away and experience the bigger world than what I was living at the time.
Yeah, spheres of influence, I think, are critical. Is there something throughout the Army process? I'm curious, why the Army branch? Obviously, you had familiarity with it. Mm-hmm. I see people either gravitate towards what their parents did branch-wise or go the opposite. I'm curious if because you were in the Army community, it resonated with you, so you wanted to, find a goal within that branch specifically and choose a goal to meet. Was that something you thought about, or was it, Army versus Navy, and Army was the one that gave you the best offer?
I didn't consider anything else. Yeah. I knew the Army and I enjoyed my childhood. So I thought, okay, I could see myself doing this long term. The Marines I heard were crazy. Yeah, definitely. We were near an Air Force base, so I kind of saw a little bit of that, and it just wasn't anything that appealed to me. Maybe it was just that they wore blue. For some simple reason, but really it was just the familiarity with the Army and what I had already experienced. And again, being able to set those goals for myself because I saw what my dad did.
Was your dad in a similar role to what you wanted to achieve within the Army?
No, he was, I think he did something with helicopters or something like that. And honestly, I don't even know. He went to Vietnam. I know he did that. And his day-to-day, I wasn't sure. I just knew that he was a sergeant first class, an E7. I knew that there were numbers higher than that. I thought, okay, I'm going to get to an E9. Yeah, I'm going to surpass him. I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder and I wanted to do that. Never made it to that point, but that was kind of what I set out to do.
Yeah, interesting. I think it's continuing to elevate the family story. Sounds like a common thread. I think that's admirable to want to carry on a legacy like the military and strive for something bigger. I hear a lot of people as they're transitioning and looking for a role model, and they find that role model and they're like, I want to be exactly like that person. I want to just be an E7 because that's what they did. And I look up to them versus saying, what if I could reach that and elevate to an E9 and kind of be able to not necessarily climb the ladder, but shoot a little bit higher than just the direct replication of somebody's success.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. You had that desire. What do you think your biggest transition was? Was it into the military, out of the military, being a parent? What do you feel like when you look at all the transitions you've been through? Was there one that really hit you and maybe set you back a little bit, where you had to recover?
That's a great question, because I was in the Army for 3 years. Mm-hmm. I got pregnant towards the end of that time. And I think that was, for me, the biggest transition to say, moving away from the goal that I had of being in for the long haul and achieving, again, this very lofty goal. That when I got pregnant, I had, I guess, all these hormones running through me, or who knows what, just thinking about, am I ready to let my newborn baby go away to be with my parents while we deployed, because we were on rotations to Kosovo. My husband and I were both military police officers, and that was coming up, and I would have been gone for a year. And so in those moments, I thought, okay, I can't see myself as a mother doing that. So I made the decision to get out of the Army, and my husband stayed in. Where it's funny, his goal was to just stay in long enough to get money for college.
Yep.
And then he stayed in for 22 and a half years. So we flip-flopped our goals. But for me, that part of motherhood at that point was just something that I thought, okay, I need to take a step back from what I wanted to do for myself and pay attention to what I need to do for my kids.
Interesting. Was your goal when you got out of high school, got into the military, was your goal to be a parent? Like, was that a goal on your list that would, supersede the goal of, reaching that level in the Army?
No, I really didn't see that. I did have a kid really early. So I had already one child. Yep. And so that was something that I thought, okay, well, I'll have one.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then when I got pregnant with my daughter, my second, that's, I think, when I said, okay, well, this is something where we do need to focus on the family. It's one thing to have one child and who is a little more self-sufficient, but now to have a second as a baby in the Army, because I wasn't in the Army when I had my first child. So that just completely flipped everything for me. But I did not expect to have, 3 kids and, a grandbaby now. That was just not in my plan at all.
Yeah, it all happens. My mom had a similar thing. My parents met in the military, and then my mom got pregnant like in her 4th year, and she wanted to continue and had to make that tough decision. And it's just interesting to see that not everybody makes that decision to get out. Maybe they stay in and find ways to accommodate the situation, or it's just very interesting. But that's a huge kind of inflection point in your life, right? You have this big goal, and there's a goal that's a longer one, which is raise a kid till they're X age, and then they leave the house, which is a huge calling. But then maintaining the goal you have, I think sometimes you have to make those decisions. I'm sure at the time it was difficult to be able to choose, which one felt best for Nicole versus which one would be best for that future kid or best for the future family. So was there something during that process that gave you a sign or some type of feeling of, if I decide to still pursue the goal, maybe I'll regret it later? Or like, what helped drive that decision-making process, if anything?
Yeah, my husband really helped with that. Just knowing that I had his support regardless of what I chose to do, and that we were a team. So I think without that, it would not have been as easy. I may have felt like I needed to continue on, and that I had to contribute somehow. I continued working after that, but it was, again, always with the support of my husband at whatever direction I wanted to take. So that was huge for me.
How important do you think communication, asking for help throughout that transition was? Obviously, you were probably going through a lot in your own head, but to be able to contextualize it, I think a lot of people during transition have trouble asking for help in the right way that other people can support them through that. Was there anything you learned through that process of just being raw and being like, hey, I don't really know the choice I want to make, but let's work it out together?
I hate to say this, but there really wasn't that much conversation except
Yeah.
for I think he could read the situation enough because I'm not super great at communicating my feelings or asking for help. So if I didn't have somebody like him who was able to come to me and see what was going on inside that maybe I couldn't even vocalize, then that was helpful. So having a teammate like that who can understand without you having to say it out loud, that was key. And how do you find that person? I don't know. I got very lucky for sure.
Yeah, there's not necessarily a formula to that.
Exactly.
That's excellent. So transitioning out of the military, having 2 kids now, were you looking for other things to fulfill that career desire of serving others, reaching some type of business goal, things of that nature? What did that transition look like to get into what you're doing today and kind of find your footing?
Oh wow, that's such a winding road. Yes, I definitely knew that I needed to be involved in something somehow. And it started with things like, because at the time we were living in Germany, there wasn't a lot for me to do as a military spouse, besides going off to maybe work at the PX, the Post Exchange. So I started a cake decorating business because I just wanted to be involved with business and making money somehow. I didn't know how else to do it. And then I was a dental assistant at one point. So I said, you know what? I want to achieve this. They're having this dental assistant class. I'm going to be the top of the class and I'm going to go out and be a dental assistant. So every step of the way, as I kind of figured out, all right, well, what else could I be doing to further my education, to further, again, money is important, right? Like, especially when you have a growing family, I knew I needed to make more money than I was bringing in. So I was always looking for ways to do that as well. And it just kind of along the way, again, with my husband's support. And I always say that I had the luxury of trying things and saying, all right, I've tried this. That's not for me. Now let me try something else. But always looking for whatever it is, trying to be the best at that thing that I can be, and making sure that I am trying to be an expert in my field and learning the ins and outs and being a resource for people in whatever capacity that I could be. So how I got to what I'm doing today really had no bearing on any of the past jobs, except for I just wanted to make sure that, again, I figured out ways to educate myself and do something that I thought was powerful and that I could be passionate about in that moment. If I didn't love it, then I, again, had the luxury to go off and try something different.
Yeah, I think that trait of having the want and the desire to be the best at what you're doing, but to be agile in your preparation, which is like how you feel that day and what may be going on in the ecosystem. Maybe one of the kids is sick. There's all the flexibility you need, but still maintaining that want and desire to be the best at something. I think a lot of people have that like deep down, but it's hard to bring that out to the things you're doing because the environment, the things that you need to be flexible towards, it's hard to judge like when to apply pressure to be the best and when to kind of step back. But I talk a lot about that to transitioning athletes, especially like younger athletes that maybe never did anything in business or they never had a job. They were just always athletes. And they have that want and desire to be the best, but they don't know how to be flexible and agile in the preparation for it. They're just like 100 all the time. And it's kind of it's like a flow of things that I think some people just have and some people don't. I'm curious if you gleaned any lessons from, wanting to be the best at something, but also knowing when to kind of hit the brake or kind of take the foot off the gas pedal.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the times I was a school teacher and I thought I want, again, that same, I want to do great for these kids. And that means that I really need to know what I'm doing. I need to try really hard. And I didn't have a teaching license, but I was working on trying to get that at the same time as I was teaching. And when I realized I wasn't able to give 100% to the kids that I was teaching because of the way it was kind of set up, that's where I decided, okay, I've got to take a step back and make sure that I'm doing right by the people that I'm serving. And when I found out that I really self-reflection to say that I'm not doing that, it was a good thing for me to be able to say I tried, but I don't want to put anybody else at risk for not getting my best just because I'm not able to handle all the things that are going on in my life right now with that, with trying to go to school and teaching school, and I've got the kids and everything else. So that was a moment for me that it was difficult to admit, but I'm glad that I did. So
yeah, there's a lot of freedom in getting rid of things that served you once that may not serve you going forward, and it's almost like shedding layers of yourself. And I think we sometimes we keep putting more and more layers on, and it's that feeling of overwhelm and unclarity and decision fatigue, all the things that come along with that. That sounds like you kind of figured out what that threshold is to be able to say, all right, I gave it my best shot. I want to be great at everything I do, and I know that about myself. So I need to maybe point my desire somewhere else or reprioritize.
Right. And it's also those sunk costs, right? I didn't want to, I think I've always kind of understood that concept, and I did not want to get into that point of thinking, well, I've just gone too far and there's no way I can get out of this because of everything I've put into it, my time, my money, and realizing that there's no reason that I have to succumb to dealing with the sunk costs, and that I can walk away from it. So that's been important to me. And I think understanding concepts like that early on, I'm not sure where I heard that. I'm sure in school somewhere. Luckily that stuck with me as well.
Yeah. How would you describe that to somebody that doesn't understand a sunk cost?
So a sunk cost is basically that you've put a lot of time, you've put a lot of money, you put a lot of heartache, sometimes, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, all of the things that you think I've put so much into it, I cannot walk away. But realizing that, okay, sometimes it makes even more sense to walk away in those scenarios when you've lost a lot. You know, you don't want to just keep going down that road and lose even more.
Hey everyone, this episode is sponsored by my company, Valor Cybersecurity, where we help defense contractors navigate the uncharted waters of cybersecurity compliance. As a cyber attack victim myself, I know the impact that this plays in people's lives, and at Valor, we solve that each and every day. If you're a defense contractor feeling frustrated and confused when it comes to cybersecurity compliance, visit valor-cybersecurity.com, take our free assessment, and get started on your journey to clarity in cybersecurity. Yeah, that's a critical concept for people to understand. I know a lot of people that are financially literate, and I did economics in college, so I heard it a lot. But relating it to the lifestyle like you have, I think is critical for people to understand that just because you put years into this doesn't mean that needs to be your for everything if it's no longer serving either your goal or your mission or yourself. I think that's a critical concept for people to walk away with. And it takes a lot of self-reflection, like you said, and you went through that process to do the hard work to hopefully make things easier in the long term, which is incredible. So you built a great brand in the commercial real estate business now. I'm curious what that journey has been like. I know for a lot of people listening in, they're trying to find that like second, third, fourth opportunity that they can dig their teeth into. And obviously it takes trying things to get there where you're like, this is something I could see myself doing. Curious just of that journey and some of the things you've learned specifically about that business, which is very people focused, and kind of what got you into it to start.
Well, one of those times where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up still. And I thought for a moment after teaching that I was going to stay home with my youngest. I thought, I'll be a stay-at-home mom. I'm going to try this. And I think it lasted for 8 weeks, something like that. And I saw an ad in the paper for a transaction coordinator for a residential real estate team in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We were stationed at Fort Bragg at the time. And I thought, okay, well, real estate sounds interesting. I can do this. It's, transaction stuff. Not a big deal. So I started off doing that. I really, really loved all the behind the scenes part of real estate. And so I got my license. I worked my way up. I still didn't work out in the public with people, helping them buy and sell houses, but I worked with home builders who were trying to figure out, well, what are people looking for when they are building a house? So I worked as a director of sales and marketing on the residential side. And then when we moved to Virginia Beach in 2014, I thought, okay, I'm going to stick with residential real estate, but now I'm going to go out and I'm going to be the person showing this home and, helping people with their dream. And I did not love that at all. The decision-making process, which is emotional as it should be, it's your home. My personality did not align with that. And luckily one day I was talking to a friend of mine and he said, I hear what you're saying, that you're not in love with what you're doing, but you love real estate. Have you ever considered commercial real estate? And I thought, you know what? I haven't, but that sounds intriguing. And in 2016, I did some more research and I decided to go try commercial real estate. And lucky for me, there was a job opening for an administrator in that field so that I could get paid to learn and not have to jump right into it. So I did that for a couple years. And then I had a broker who had been doing it for over 20 years. She said, "Are you ready to get into brokerage now that you've been doing it for a while behind the scenes?" And I said, "Yeah, I am actually. Let's do this." And so beginning of 2019, I jumped into brokerage with a great partner at the time and just cut my teeth on, everything that she could teach me and that I could hear while I was at the office and glean from other people. So for me, it turned into knowing that I loved real estate, but that the business to business aspect for me was where it really took off. Like that made this sense for me. And again, aligned with my personality and the fact that we could have some things that are a little more black and white. Does it meet your budget? No? Great. Let's move on. Yeah. And it wasn't as an emotional type decision-making process.
Yeah, more logical.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. I think that paid to learn concept is something that's undervalued. I know I got that early on in my career as I was transitioning. Somebody was basically like, we see the value you can have in the future. Maybe you have some value. We don't see the direct correlation, but we'll pay you to learn the value we feel like you have in store versus I think a lot of transitioning military, transitioning athletes, they devalue themselves to the world because their identity is shaped by that role they had in the military or role they had in baseball. And I think there's a lot of people out there that will pay people to learn, but you have to give yourself the chance to say, I'm interested in this. I may not be the broker to start, but I can find somebody that needs my maybe administrative skill set to be able to reach that goal. And it's kind of, first principles thinking that you have to start somewhere to get to where you want to go. You have to start the car before you can, start driving and get to the destination. Did you know that concept, or did you kind of come across the role and say, that's an interesting role for now? I'll see where it goes, versus being like, I want to be the broker. I'm not going to take that administrator role because I want to be a broker now, and having that kind of longer term thinking.
Well, I definitely had the longer term thinking because I did start off with a gentleman who I thought, okay, I'll just work with this guy who is in commercial real estate. And then I realized it was going to take a long time to build up a book of business and to really learn it, because it was with one person, where if I could move into a role where it was a larger company and there was a lot more going on, and I could get the behind the scenes is so important, because you can do the paperwork, you can do the marketing stuff, you can listen to the phone calls, you can listen to the meetings and just get all this information, just kind of soak it up. And so I knew that was the goal for me. But then I will say, probably halfway through that process, I thought, I don't know if I want to be a broker. I got comfortable. Yeah. And I'm not sure what it took to get me to the point. And it may have been really that question of, are you ready to go? Are you ready to do this? Because I see that you're ready, and having somebody have the confidence in me to know that, okay, yeah, I do need to move on, and I don't need to just stagnate and just sit in this role, that I could be more and do more for people. So I was just very, very lucky to have somebody who believed in me in that moment, when I think I had felt like, all right, well, I'll just sit here behind the desk and not get out there. So
that's extremely interesting that you had the view of, how do I get into an operator role where I can really learn all the pieces of the business? And I think those are the most intriguing roles when you're first starting out, because maybe you thought you wanted to be a broker and you look at the whole business and you wanted to do something else, like the loan side, or you wanted to do more of the financial side. And I know I had a role that was, the first job I got out of baseball was like a government affairs associate or something. And I was like, what is government affairs? But what it taught me is how to translate cybersecurity or complex topics to like officials, like, admirals and different leaders of organizations. And that skill set was transferable to anything that I did. But if I looked at just at the role, then I would have been like, oh, I'm just, helping to advocate for government laws and regulations. But having that bigger view of this could give me opportunities that I never expected or thought were possible, because I'm able to see how the whole business operates at the end of the day, which is
and that's what
huge.
we tell interns as well, who are looking at, they think they want to get into some role in commercial real estate. And we tell them, just come in and start with property management, go talk to the accounting department, sit with the folks over in property administration, not just the property management part, and then come to brokerage, because now you have an idea of, well, what does it take to operate a building from an owner's mindset? And now you can take it into your role as a broker. And so we try to get kids to have that thought process as well. It's a little more difficult when you're young and you don't know anything different than school. How do you take on these roles? But I think that's, if you can do that with anything, honestly, and just figure out, how can I use this thing that I'm learning? Like you said, it could have just kept you in one little box, but you were able to see something bigger than that. So just, I think flipping that switch is important.
Yeah, that's the huge mindset piece. I think the approach that you take to the world around you helps you connect to the things that are most important or most valuable to where you're headed. And we like to talk a lot about that on this show. I don't see many commercial real estate people on social media. Was there something you noticed when you first got in or throughout the process that said, I need to, be consistent. I need to be like, put myself out there so people know what commercial real estate is? Because when I think about commercial real estate, I think of larger companies that you have to know where they are to go find them versus them, being like educating you. And then they're like, wow, I'm a business owner. I'm going to grow into buying some type of building. And this person has educated me to a point where I know how to go about buying it, versus just the sign in the, in the ground or on the door that says, call us if you want to, if you want to lease or buy this place.
What started it for me was because I had been in the admin role for 2 years and nobody knew who I was. And I wasn't from the area originally. I didn't have a lot of deep connections. I would go to networking events, and I'm an introvert. It was very difficult for me to go just walk up to people and introduce myself and make a real connection, which I knew relationships were important. And I was spending a lot of time doing that and not getting anything out of it. So I met, because I'm a military spouse, through that. There was a Milspo project is what it was called. And I met a woman named Nikki who did coaching. And so I worked with her and I said, here's what I'm experiencing. Here's what I'm going through. How can I put myself out there, make better use of my time, but be present on social media? Because I know that that's where people are. From my residential real estate time, I knew how important social media was. So Nikki coached me through figuring out, okay, who is your target audience? Who are the folks you need to be talking to? But also, what's your voice and what do you want to put out there? So I worked with her and I really hit LinkedIn hard. I like you said, there weren't at that time, probably nobody else in my market was on LinkedIn doing what I was doing. And it was a matter of, okay, we're going to show up every day. Here's what that looks like. Here's how you do it. And then I would go to networking events and people already knew who I was because we met online. I felt like, we were on LinkedIn together. They saw my content. We would talk in private message and say, oh, we're going to be both at this event. Let's meet up. I'd show up and expecting to meet that person, but then I would run into a lot of other people who said, oh, I saw that thing you did on LinkedIn. And at the time, it was a lot of videos and just trying new stuff. And putting yourself on video, oh my gosh, like one of the most difficult things, but you just had to do it, right? So I did it when nobody else was doing it. And that just paid tenfold, meeting new people and building relationships. So that's how it started. And now it's me talking about ceiling tiles on Instagram, which is kind of random, but
Nice.
I find things that are interesting to me, and I put out things because I didn't grow up in commercial real estate. I haven't been doing it for 30 years. I think I do have a different mindset, and I'm looking at it through a different lens than maybe some other people do. So if I think something's interesting, I put it out there, and most likely other people think it's interesting as well.
I think that's the beauty of social media is we can amplify a voice for the different types of customers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's critical. I'm curious how long it took for you to find benefit. I see a lot of people that are on social media, obviously because it's hard to get in front of camera and not feel extremely scripted.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will do it for a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then it kind of flails out. I'm curious how long it took for you to start realizing benefits of people saying, oh, I saw you do this and I know what you do now.
Mm-hmm. It probably took maybe 3 or 4 months, something like that. But I was showing up every day. I had a plan of, okay, on this day, I'm going to talk to tenants. On this day, I'm going to talk to landlords, and it wasn't necessarily super scripted. And I have plenty of blooper reels to show that it was not scripted mostly at all. I would just try to repeat things over and over until I got it correct. But I think 3 or 4 months into it, again, because I was still going to all those networking events, just trying to show up in person as much as possible as well. That has to be something that's happening at the same time. You can't just do one thing, because if you're on social media but you never show up in person, then it's not going to be a benefit to you. So, and then as soon as I started hearing those people say, oh, I saw this on LinkedIn, then I knew, okay, well, this is something I have to do. Yeah. So now I'm known as the LinkedIn person, even though I think I post maybe once every couple weeks at this point. I don't do it like every day like I used to, but I'm still known as, oh, all your stuff on LinkedIn. So.
Yeah. It takes a lot longer than we think. And I think a lot of people give up before their intended impact is realized and felt. Did it take any outside support or influences besides the validation and like people saying, hey, I saw your stuff? Did it take anybody like on the days you wanted to give up and be like, this isn't working, like I'm not getting the views or like the stats that I wanted to get? Did it take any outside forces to kind of keep you going? Do any of those stick out of like, this was somebody that told me?
A couple times. And sometimes it was to spite what people were saying, to say, oh, that's not going to work. Why would you spend your time doing that? Okay, let me double down, right? So getting the naysayers, that was something that kept me going. And then it was at the company I was with before, one of the principals who would say, oh, I heard about something you posted. Can you do more of that? And somebody recognizing who, as the firm wasn't doing all these things, but they recognized how important it was. And that I was kind of the face of the company, for lack of better words. And so they supported my efforts as well. And, oh, you're a rock star. So hearing that's always good too.
It is. It's both sides, right? It's the challengers. I think we all need the skeptics to prove them wrong. But also having the support of people maybe on your team or on similar teams saying, we see what you're doing and you should go this route more often, like this topic or this subject. I think all of those help us. But a lot of times we don't value enough the critic side of things and how impactful that can be to making us more hungry to keep doing it. Because we're looking for the outside just validation, just somebody saying, great job, keep doing what you're doing, and wait for the pat on the back. And that doesn't always come. And that makes people feel like they're not having the impact. And that's not I don't think that's the case.
Well, and I think if you hear people being negative about what you're doing, but they are still seeing what you're doing, there's a reason why. Not everybody's going to be happy about your success. But so if you start hearing people who are negative towards you, that means that, you are making an impact. They're seeing what you're doing and they would like you to stop. So for whatever reason. And I think, again, that just, like you said, keeping you hungry and having something to push for and say, I'm going to overcome what these folks are telling me. Yeah.
So it sounds like branding has been critical in that journey of where you're at. If somebody's just starting out and they're trying to, I guess, get a grip on what they want their brand to be, would you say just try different things, or is there something that you've followed, whether it's, mentors or an example that says, hey, I should, go check this person or these people out that are doing this. Maybe it's in a different industry, and try to take the good and bad and create your own formula out of it. Or is there something that helped you to figure out what platforms to use, kind of the strategy you use today?
Yeah, that content coach, Nikki Zellner, she was amazing. And she really helped me dial in on what am I good at? And we discovered I'm good at writing, I'm good at storytelling, and I'm also good at the storytelling in video and just figuring out angles that maybe people don't think about. So she helped me with that. And then I already knew that LinkedIn was where businesses were. And for me, that's what made sense. I wanted to be in front of business owners. So that's the place that I thought I needed to be. But I think my biggest piece of advice after doing this now for so long is that be wherever you're going to be showing up consistently. Yeah. It's consistency. It's authentic, being your authentic self. Yeah. And if you feel like you can't be your authentic self on some certain platform, or that you just don't feel good being there, then don't be there. Figure out a different place to be. Yeah. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn and Instagram. I tried TikTok. I do stuff on there every once in a while, but it's, again, someplace that I don't show up all the time, and it's not my people necessarily. So I don't stick around there too often. But those two platforms, I don't do Facebook typically, because that's just not something I enjoy. But that's the biggest part of it, is just show up where you're going to show up, and that a place that you enjoy being, and just do it all the time. Yeah. You have to start off doing it all the time.
Yeah, it sounds like the translation, or giving the audience a different view, has been critical and differentiated you from others in the commercial real estate space. And that sounds like it just comes from pure authenticity of, who you are and who you came into the business as. It wasn't that your family owned a commercial real estate company, and it's just like, I'm working this because it's my family business. And,
right.
It sounds like that's brought a unique level of passion to it, because it's kind of new for you. So you're learning, and the people that are viewing your content are learning while you learn as well. And I think there's something special at the intersection of those, when you're it's like you're creating your own school. Like, you're learning it and then you're sharing it, or like seeing things that could go wrong, and then you're educating people in your audience about it, and then they're learning it. I think it allows them to better connect with Nicole and the companies you're working for, and the properties you're selling potentially. Do you ever get that from people that view your content? Like, wow, this is way different than anything else I've seen in the commercial real estate space.
Yeah, all the time. And it's typically because we have a lot of older people in my business. And so it's just not something that they felt comfortable with. And so they are not seeing the faces typically. And you'll have a business owner who will say, yeah, I've never seen anybody do this before. This is something way outside the box. It's really not that outside the box if you think about it. I mean, people do it all the time. It's just a matter of, in my market, in this field, folks aren't doing it like I'm doing it. And again, consistently, because I've seen some people they'll kind of get started. They'll ask me for advice. I'm happy to give advice. They'll try a couple things here and there. They don't see an immediate return. And so it kind of goes by the wayside. But I hear that all the time, is that still, even today, that I'm one of the main people that they know in commercial real estate who's doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's incredible, all the transitions you've been through, getting out of the military yourself, and being a military spouse. Is there any advice you'd have for other military spouses who still want to have, like, the teacher impact you went through, and the cake decorating business and things of that nature? Any advice you would have for other military spouses to have a better chance to find some things that they can connect to in the community? I know there's like career development centers on military bases and things of that nature. Anything you've learned that would help that other military spouse navigate all the things you did, good steps and bad, in a more smooth way that you've learned through the process?
Yeah, I think the biggest is having some sort of support system somehow, like finding those people that you align with. And if it's that you've started off in a volunteer role and now you have friends or mentors through those types of positions that can help you, especially with spouses who have young kids. That's the most difficult thing, I think, to navigate, is figuring out how do you do anything in life where, you have to have somebody else watch your kids while you're doing it, figuring that part out, because it does cost money, and just finding the right people. But I think in those moments of, well, maybe I can't leave the house right now to go off and try these things. What can I do to learn about this process? Especially now, you can really research anything. YouTube is there, and you can do some things at home to learn about whatever it is that you're interested in enough to, okay, well, now when it's time to have the ability to go actually have a job or a volunteer role, is to do that. And then stick with it long enough to where you can say, okay, I've tried this. I know I like it, or I know I don't like it, because, doing something for a couple weeks is not going to give you that. So it's something where it's going to take some time, but at least stay in the role for a while so that you can have an understanding of, is this for me, or is something like this a different path that I need to take, and how do I get there? And always be learning. That's been the biggest thing for me too. It's just constant learning. Yeah.
Learners are earners is the
absolutely.
saying. There's a lot of incredible lessons in your journey, branding, transition, consistency, that I think the audience is really going to be able to attach to and take away. And I think those are things that set people up for success, no matter if it's commercial real estate, whether they're, doing athletics, whatever they're doing, parenting. I think a lot of those help you there as well. So really excited for the journey ahead for you. I think a lot of those lessons are going to continue to propel you and allow you to make a huge impact in the community. One of the ways we like to end the show, to kind of bring things back for the audience listening in, because we're all about kind of connecting to the things that matter most, to give people clarity as they transition, or for future transitions that they're going to go through, is what does the word connection mean to you?
What does the word connection mean to me? Is relationships, and taking relationships forward that you feel are mutually beneficial, not one-sided. And so if that means dropping some relationships as well that are not, where the folks don't align, then figuring out the way to drop those too. So connection doesn't have to be in perpetuity, and we can grow and change, and connections change, and that's fine.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you're feeling more connected from this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with someone that you care about. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Connected Mindset Podcast.